Welcome to this episode of Alive and Thriving. Today we're going to be chatting about EFT tapping and why it is so much more than just a well-being trend. So if you have not heard of EFT or tapping, emotional freedom techniques, then you are going to want to listen to this episode. And if you have heard of EFT, if you are familiar with EFT, then stick around because we are going to be chatting about how you can use it really specifically in the context of your business. Because if you follow me, if you worked in my world, you know that I am so passionate about advocating for emotional well-being as an essential part of an entrepreneur's journey, obviously of anybody's journey, but in particular the women that I work with in business, coaches, healers, service-based businesses. It is so important to understand the impact that your emotional well-being has on the outcomes of your business, as well as the outcomes that you get in your life and the way that you feel throughout your day-to-day life. So let's chat today about EFT and why it is so much more than just a well-being trend. If you have ever listened to episode 1, and I know some of you have, I know some of you have listened to every single episode, which is just such an honor, absolutely such an honor for me to know that. If you have listened to episode 1, then you will know that EFT is something that is really, really close to me in terms of modalities. I know obviously I work with multiple modalities. I love using so many different tools, hypnotherapy, body psychotherapy, meditation therapy, so many different techniques, and they all serve a purpose. But for me, tapping is always my default, always the thing that I circle back to when I need emotional support, even just if I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed while I'm driving the car. And the reason for that, I think for me, well, first of all, because it is so easy to self-apply and self-soothe. But I think the other reason that for me I go back to it is because when I was living in this chronic state of anxiety, when I was living in this chronic state of panic attacks, when I was barely functioning in my day-to-day world, I genuinely got to a point where I was like, nothing I've tried is working. There is nothing that is helping me to feel better. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel normal again. And by normal, I just meant waking up in the morning without this sensation in my body, like I was doomed. And all of those physical panic sensations, I was experiencing those every single day from the moment I opened my eyes. And so I think for me, when I came across tapping, this is one of those moments where it's like, tapping changed my life, but it did. It really, really, truly did. Because when I started tapping, I started just Googling what it was. I found an online resource that basically taught me how to tap, and I followed some of their guided meditations, which obviously, if you work with me, when we do guided EFTs, we get to stay at that surface level. We get those calming benefits, but then we get to go deeper. We get to go deeper with EFT so that we can get to the root cause of what is going on for you. So anyway, I was tapping with these audios, and I literally just stumbled across someone's Instagram one day. And I've actually thanked this woman. She had no idea the impact she made on my life. I messaged her a couple of months ago and thanked her. I stumbled across EFT one day when I was in bed. It was the beginning of our first lockdowns. And the post literally said, if you have been struggling with anxiety through lockdown, here's 3 things that could help. And tapping was one of them. So I started doing these guided audios, and I actually started to feel calm in my body. And then I was getting these prolonged sensations of calm. So maybe half an hour at a time, and then an hour at a time. And then I had a whole day without that panic sensation. And I was like, there is something in this. And so I listened to a book about how it all worked. And then I was like, oh, what a great tool to not only self-heal, but to take back to my corporate job, which I thought I was going back to my government job that I thought I was going back to, which I never did, by the way. All in on the business, because once I started this, oh my goodness, there was no way I was giving it up. But basically, I did this 12-month practitioner training, again, for the purpose at the time of self healing and maybe a great technique tool to take into my leadership role. And what I found throughout that process was not only it ignited this passion in me to do what I am doing now, and I realized how much, because I'd always been looking at different alternative therapies, because normal clinical ways just didn't help me. And I know they serve a purpose and I know they're life saving for some people. For me, that just wasn't the case. They just didn't help me in the way that I needed them to. So when I found tapping and I was doing this training, and I realized that not only was I starting to get my life back, I was driving my car again, I was getting migraines at less intervals. I also went through what we call in EFT a personal peace procedure. And the personal peace procedure is something that allowed me to do some very deep healing for things that I did not even realize were keeping me was stagnant in my body and were keeping me in this chronic state of fight or flight. So once I had done all of this and I had worked with people in my practitioner training, and I, as I said, started my business, I did further study on mind body connection. I've got all these amazing tools that I integrate, but EFT is always my go-to. My little kids, they use EFT tapping. And you might look at it, as I said at the beginning of this episode, we are gaining a lot of traction in terms of people being aware of what EFT is. More and more people now, when I do presentations, because I do present to groups a lot, different women in business and different areas of education and things like that on EFT, more and more people are saying, oh, I've heard of it. I've heard of it, but they don't fully understand the benefits. And for a lot of them, they don't realize that there is actually so much evidence and clinical research and scientific evidence behind it. So I think for some of us, for some people at the beginning, it's like, it's just like a woo-woo. It's this energetic technique, and it is absolutely an energetic technique. It's a technique that brings in your energy system as well as your body as well as your mind. It is a holistic approach to releasing emotions. I'm going to explain in a moment how it all works, but as it's gaining more and more traction, I just feel like it's really important to talk about the fact that it's not just a well-being trend. Learning EFT is going to be a tool that is going to support you for the rest of your life in terms of emotional management, in terms of stress management. And if you are running a business, this is something that is just so crucial to your outcomes and to your success. Because if you are running a business from fear, if you are running a business from limiting beliefs that are not serving you, that are going to keep you stuck at whatever stagnant level you are at, unable to hold your next level, then tapping is a phenomenal way to help move through those really, really quickly as well. It's also a phenomenal way to help lower stress, anxiety, interrupt panic attacks, as I learned very early on. And so I just want you to know too that if you are listening and you're like, oh, where do I start learning this? I have a free resource that teaches you EFT tapping, and that's linked in the show notes below. But I also have a live masterclass style immersion coming up in December. There are 2 live dates, and you can join us. You can come along for free and you can experience a different kind of experience to what you are having in your day-to-day world, which is likely always being on, feeling like you're struggling to switch off, maybe feeling like the thoughts in your head are really noisy and your body is in this chronic state of stress. Maybe your mood is on edge. Maybe you just know that you want to learn how to prioritize your well-being so that you can have these outcomes that you are looking for, not only in your business, but in the way that you want to feel in your life. And so in this 1 hour of EFT, we are going to give you a different experience to what you are having in your day-to-day life. I'm going to help you to soften the noise of those never-ending thought loops. I'm going to help you to lower stress in your body and help you to feel calm. and in control and actually lower stress hormones as well. EFT has been proven to do that, as well as help you to leave knowing how to use EFT in your day-to-day life so that you can use it as a stress reduction tool. So if you would like to come along for this 1 hour experience, it is completely free and it is linked in the show notes. So inspiredlifecollective.com.au/masterclass, and you can sign up. And if you can't make the 2 live dates, then you will get a replay sent out to you just for registering. So make sure that you do claim that free seat and come along for that experience. It is one of my most requested events that I do. So the last time I did it, people have been asking me, when are you going to do that one again? Here it is.
You're listening to Alive and Thriving with Jessica Reed, the podcast that's all about empowering you to achieve optimal wellness and success through self-care, holistic practices, and raw conversations. Jessica and her expert guests are here to share powerful insights and strategies to help you overcome stress and anxiety, take charge of your life, and thrive in life and in business. Grab a cuppa and let's dive in.
So I have already explained so much about EFT, but basically let's start by going into a little bit more of what tapping actually is. EFT is a combination of traditional Chinese medicine and modern psychology. And what happens when we're tapping is we are using our fingers. It's a self-applied, self-soothing technique. We are using our fingers to stimulate acupressure points. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing right now, to stimulate acupressure points that surface close to our skin. Now, when we are stimulating these acupressure points, it has actually been proven that a calming signal is being sent up to your amygdala, your brain's fight or flight response center. And what this is doing is saying, let's imagine that you have a series of stressful thoughts happening. I've got to do all of this work, or this client did this, or why did this person not turn up, or whatever stressful thoughts you are having. I want you to imagine that when you're tapping and the brain's getting this signal of stress from your thoughts and having a physiological danger response, preparing you to fight or flee from the thoughts in your head, at the same time when you're tapping, it's also getting this calming signal coming up. And the logic of that is that we can't be in danger and calm at the same time. And what happens then is we find that this neutralizes the emotion behind these thoughts. Now, this is why if you can actually get into the root cause, which is something you can absolutely do on your own, but if it is trauma, I recommend working with somebody who can hold that space for you. But if you can actually get into the root cause of what you are tapping about, so let's say somebody didn't turn up to their appointment and you've decided that is because you are not a good practitioner, and you can bring that back down to a belief around not being smart enough, for example, then you can actually use EFT tapping on that belief. If we can get to the root cause, then it's like knocking over dominoes. So when we tap, when we're getting this calming signal, we're neutralizing the emotion that is attached to those thoughts. That is why it is so effective. And there are different techniques and strategies that we do use as practitioners to treat trauma. In fact, I believe that it is actually an approved trauma treatment in the US for returning war vets. It is really effective in terms of lowering your stress response, in terms of allowing the amygdala and the hippocampus, then because we've lowered our stress response, to reprogram the way that you have previously associated those thoughts in terms of emotional associations, fear-based associations. And so I hope you can see how this could be not only so impactful in your life if you are carrying around stagnant old memories that you have not actually processed, remembering that when we talk about something, we are refiring off that pathway and actually strengthening it. So even if you are just telling a story about something that has happened to you, something that you have experienced, your brain does not know the difference between a real event and a perceived event. And your body is going to respond as if it's happening in the here and now. So even if you're just chatting to a friend on the phone about something crappy that's happened to you that day, I'd be tapping at the same time. And there's a whole podcast episode. There's a whole episode if you scroll back about this and about how that works. So when EFT is something that, first of all, as I mentioned, is working to lower our stress response. It is working with your thoughts to disconnect the emotional attachment that we have to those thoughts. Now, let's pull this back even further. Emotions are energy in motion. The energy system is not woo woo, it is actually quite evidence based now. It's called the primovascular system, and there are MRI images. There is real evidence based research that shows that this is a real system that we are working with. So our meridians, these are energy highways within our body. Okay, if you imagine them like rivers or highways. And when we have emotions that aren't processed, that are pushed down, that stay stagnant in these highways. And when we have meridians that are blocked, that is going to come up as all sorts of physical and mental and emotional challenges for you. I firmly believe that when we are, and this is based on my own experience with anxiety, but also with my clients as well, when we have reached that space of anxiety and panic, that is our body screaming at us to pay attention to something. And most of the time, it is something that we have suppressed deep down. And logically, we've thought, that's over, so I'm not dealing with that anymore. So therefore, it is no longer an issue for me. But if you hadn't processed that emotion, or you had made a fear-based response, association, in your brain, if it has actually associated that event and added it onto a root cause event from your childhood that may seem seemingly unrelated, but you've made an emotional association around that being fear-based, or a belief that is, again, limiting for you in what you want to be achieving now, then you are always going to be overrun by that fear-based response, because it's survival, it's protection. And so when we are tapping, we are clearing away that stagnant energy within your body. We are helping those energy highways to flow freely. And that is something that we really underestimate the power of. So EFT works at that cognitive level. It also works at an energetic level. And it is somatic, which means body, because we are tapping on our body. We are bringing our body into our healing. And when we are tapping and we're getting that calming signal, this is allowing us to come out of our sympathetic, our stress nervous system, and into a parasympathetic, calm state. This is the state we are actually designed to live in. We are not designed to live in this always on edge, hypervigilant, never knowing what your mood is going to be, feeling low energy, or completely feeling wired all the time, on the go, busy, muscle tension, always being unwell. We are not meant to live like that. We are meant to live in a parasympathetic state. That is where rest and digest happens. You might even hear that as rest and digest. So when we're tapping, we are working with our mind and our body and our energy system. Now, what you will experience when you are tapping, if you are following a lot of practitioners or you are following guided meditations, is that you will, oh, and by the way, somebody with an active brain, a lot of my clients with ADHD, they love tapping because they're not having to sit still and try and focus their mind to one point. Tapping is another way that it's an alternative to meditation for them. I lost where I was up to. Oh, that's right. So EFT, when you are following guided meditations, you are likely going to be following what we call the clinical EFT sequence. So there are so many other tapping points than what you experience in the clinical EFT sequence, but basically what was done is it was condensed down into a series of 8 points plus our setup statement on the side of the hand. So really 9 points in the clinical EFT sequence, so that EFT could be proven as its own, like it could be standing on its own legs as a modality that really works in its most simplest form. So the points that you experience, the side of the hand, the eyebrow, the side of the eye, under the nose, under the mouth, the collarbone, under the arm, and the top of the head, all of these points connect to different energy meridians. They relate to different emotions and different physical things that you are experiencing in your body in terms of pain, illness, and things that's going on. But these are the points that are associated with clinical EFT. So this is the sequence of points that has been well researched over the last more than 30 years, plus has had over 100 studies published on its efficacy, particularly in comparison to what they call gold standard therapy treatments like CBT or acceptance and commitment therapy, other things that you've likely experienced if you have done talk therapy. EFT has been held at a standard against these and proven to be effective. And in some studies, even proven to be longer lasting. So Dr. Peter Stapleton, in her book, The Science Behind Tapping, she actually says that once you effectively deal with something using EFT, it is not likely you're going to have to deal with that issue again. And that is phenomenal. And that's certainly been my experience and the experience of some of my clients. I've had clients who have come in and they have had things happening around them that have been so triggering for them and so overwhelming. And after just 1 hour of tapping and getting down to the root cause, which sometimes takes more than one session, absolutely. Sometimes we can be tapping that for multiple sessions. But I'm just thinking of this one in particular. She had one session on this particular issue. We got down to the root cause belief. We lowered the emotional intensity with tapping, which is what we do in our clinical sequence. I brought in additional tapping points like the gamut method. And then she basically left and she went home and she walked into the room of all of these things that had been emotionally distressing for her even to just look at. And she said to me later, I looked at it and I felt nothing. And that is the beauty about tapping, is that if we can desensitize those emotions, then our external triggers are still going to be there. And I hear this all the time. That person is still doing the same things. However, it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm not feeling emotionally triggered by it. I'm neutral about it. This thing is still happening in my business. However, the way that I deal with this is so different because I'm not having an emotional response. It is so amazing and so effective in my experience when done correctly. So you can still get calming benefits just by tapping. And I say to clients all the time who are like, oh, I don't remember where to tap. If you're overwhelmed, just tap and breathe on any point. As I mentioned before, every point is connected to different meridians and different illnesses and different emotional symptoms. And so you are absolutely going to get self-soothing from tapping on one point and breathing. But if you want to get that lasting result, then using that clinical EFT sequence, not moving into the positive well and truly until you have got your subjective units of distress rating, which is your 0 to 10, how much does this impact me, down to a 0 or a 1, then we move on to the positive. Then you know that you are effectively dealing with EFT. Now, as a practitioner, I love to not just use words. I will get my clients to discover where they feel it in their body. And this is, again, bringing the body into the healing. What kind of sensations? Where is the discomfort? What does it feel like? Where have you been holding on to this? And sometimes it's like, oh, the back of my legs are cramping. I've got tingles in my foot. My elbow is throbbing. It's my head. It's heavy. And so we're actually using the body, which we call body psychotherapy, to communicate what is going on. And so, what I love about this is that as a practitioner, I can actually use the body and I can use other techniques that I have with tapping to work with trauma and to work with stories without you even having to talk about it. We go purely on the emotion and purely on the body sensation. So it is an amazingly effective technique. As I said, so much more than just a well-being trend. But if you are looking to use it even just as well-being, then you can tap with your affirmations in the morning. You can tap around helping you to actually become more active, or tap when you're having food cravings for things that are not something that is not good for you, or something that you feel like you've been having in excess. You can tap on your emotional well-being, because if we are not processing our emotions, if we are pushing them down, then they stay stagnant and they will cause illness and they will cause injury. That's just something that is so much more being understood and recognized now and spoken more about now. They will keep you in a dysregulated nervous system state, and that is going to have physical implications in your body. Stress response. It's going to impact the way that your digestive system works, the way that everything in your body works. That's for another episode, going into all of that. So you can tap for your well-being mentally, physically, and emotionally. You can tap on an illness. And if you can get to the underlying emotional cause, that could very well, can't make any promises, but that could very well help to support your healing and your recovery. It very much could. And in terms of your business, if you are showing up to your business dysregulated from a fear-based thought patterns, from self-destruction, from behavior patterns that are not serving you, from limiting beliefs that are keeping you at a capacity so that you cannot hold more in your business, more income, more impact, more clients, more, insert your more, then tapping is going to be your best friend, because you can tap your way through the discomfort. You can tap your way into better confidence. You can tap away limiting money stories. You can tap away fear of being visible. You can use EFT. You can just tap for a clear, focused mind, because first of all, if we're tapping and we're bringing our body into a parasympathetic state, then you are going to be coming into your business more calm, clear, and focused. That's just fact. And that is going to allow you to be more productive. And then if you are tapping away the root causes of these things, then you are going to be able to actually grow. You're going to be able to move past that edge of expansion. You're going to be able to step out of your comfort zone and stay there, because your nervous system is not going, oh, this is so unsafe. And your brain is not defaulting back to those old thought patterns and those limiting beliefs that keep you in that state of fight or flight when you step out of your comfort zone and make you self-sabotage or whatever your pattern is, to eventually come back to what's comfortable and familiar for you. So if you are a woman in business, if you are an entrepreneur and you don't know EFT tapping, I highly recommend that you learn it, because any tools, and obviously tapping might not be for you, and that's fine, but any tools that you can learn to regulate your emotions as an entrepreneur, so that you can neutralize your feelings about money, so you can neutralize your feelings about time, so you can stay neutral to launch events and to clients, and clear away energy after you have in energy that is not yours after you've worked with clients. If you can use a tool like EFT, then you are just going to be so much more better off, in my opinion. So I had so much more I wanted to share with you. I might even save that for another episode. Let's finish it up here. If you are curious about EFT, then reach out to me. Come and follow me on Instagram at jessica.reed.ilc. Come along to Tap Away Your Mental Load, where we are going to spend an hour switching off the noisy thoughts in your head and lowering the body's response to stress. That is what I was going to say to you. There is a study that was conducted, I think it was last year at the Bond University in Australia. It was a blind study. There were 3 groups allocated to either psychoeducation, reading a magazine, or EFT for 1 hour. Each of these groups had their cortisol tested via saliva. At the end of the hour, again, this was a blind study, so the people testing didn't know who was allocated to which group, which saliva samples were allocated to each group. At the end of that hour, the psychoeducation group had an average of 19% reduction. So that's from cognitively discussing what they could do to better manage their stress. 19% reduction in their cortisol stress hormone level. The magazine group had a 2% on average increase in their cortisol. And the EFT tapping group had an average of 43% reduction in just that 1 hour in their cortisol levels. So if that does not show you that there is, again, physical changes happening in your body, and there is so much evidence about the physical changes now that happen in your body, I invite you to go to evidencebasedeft.com, I think it is, maybe .com.au, EFTuniverse.com. Have a look at these studies on so many different things. EFT is something that can be applied from anything from PTSD and trauma and anxiety and panic attacks and stress into personal growth, academic performance, well-being, food cravings. Like, there is so many things. I have not found something yet that I have not been willing to try EFT for, because ultimately it's all going to come down to your beliefs. It's going to come down to your emotions. It's going to come down to what's being stored in your body about this thing. So EFT is a phenomenal tool to know. It is also a phenomenal tool if you are somebody who is in this space of entrepreneurship and you are looking for somebody to mentor you, if you are looking for somebody to help you to grow, then finding somebody who has EFT as a part of their toolkit, well, that is absolutely going to benefit you. I know, and there's obviously so many amazing mentors and coaches out there. I just know that from me, with the women that I work with one-on-one, with the mastermind, and with even just women that I speak to, it's like, let's tap about this. Let's just tap while we're chatting. And we can always use EFT as such a powerful tool and technique. So come along to tap away your mental load. If you are listening to this after tap away your mental load has passed, then I know there will be a way that you can get access to it. So I would just DM me. Send me a DM and say, I listened to this in January and tap away your mental load is over, but I really want to come along to that masterclass and experience that hour with you. Can you organize me a replay? And absolutely, I would love to do that. So come along. I will see you there, and I hope you have the most amazing day. Go off and start tapping. Go and start practicing. If you head to the link in the show notes below, you can watch a video where I'm going to teach you EFT straight away. And if you would like guided audios so that you don't have to worry about what do I say and where do I tap, then you can come into our tapping in a circle. We meet once a month to tap on various topics that support our well-being and our emotional growth for the impacts of our business. But we also have access to daily audios that you can plug and play whenever you need them. It's like the essential emotional toolkit for entrepreneurs. It's pretty cool. It's a beautiful space. So there are options to tap along with me. And if you don't know what the best option for you is, then just come to the free masterclass. Come to the masterclass or the tapping immersion and come along to that. And then from there, we can work out what the best plan for you is.
Wow, what a journey it's been today. We are so grateful for each and every one of you who tuned in to Alive and Thriving. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us keep growing, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite platform. It's a simple but powerful way to support a small business like ours to continue to make an impact.